Hey everybody, welcome to Far Out Dudes.
It's another week, and we got another far out conversation for you.
And you may well know me. I'm Paul.
I'm your co-host, Joseph, and today we are going to continue our Clinton body count with part 3 today.
But before we move on with part 3, we want to give you a friendly reminder to go watch part 1 and part 2, so this kind of just flows in nicely for you. First part is over Kevin Ives and Don Henry and their suspicious deaths.
And the second part is over Vince Foster and his self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Yes.
That had no exit area to his head.
That was just very, very strange.
Yes.
So on our first account is over Mary Mahoney.
Mahoney.
She
actually was very, I should say, heavily involved with Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And his escapades.
Yes,
and,
she was actually one of his interns during his first presidency.
Well, let's get into it.
Newsweek magazine had dropped hints that a former White House staffer was about to go public with her story of sexual harassment at the White House. A few days later, on July 6, 1997, Mary Mahoney and 2 other employees at Starbucks coffee shop died of gunshot wounds. The restaurant's doors were locked when the victims were found, and nothing appeared to have been stolen, although nearly $4,000 was in the store at the time. Mary Mahoney was shot as many as 5 times. The Washington Post characterized the crime as an execution-style murder. She had been heavily involved in presidential politics, working on Bill Clinton's campaign in 1992, and served as a White House intern during the first Clinton administration.
So that was pretty interesting there.
So hold on. I just want to I want to address our viewers and those listening. Our laughter, just to address this, is the absurdity of the things we hear in this video. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous what ends up happening. Like, to say that this individual was not, I mean, I could clearly see that she was not targeted in this
Not at all. I
video.
mean, it only makes sense that, well, first off, she goes from Bill Clinton being involved with that and entering for his presidency and everything, but then goes to be a night manager at Starbucks.
That's the ladder you want to climb. That's the women breaking the ceiling in the Clinton administration, that you want to go from actually being in politics to going down to being a Starbucks barista manager.
Retail.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, barista.
Yes.
That's correct. Correct.
That is the euphemism that we use nowadays, is baristas.
And not only that, but, okay, it makes sense. Maybe they were closing for the night. That's why the doors were locked. But if someone's going to go in there to rob somebody, would they want to just a quick exit out, or they're going to run to the back and try to find an exit that way?
So what you want to do, and I've seen this many times before, okay, you want to wait till they lock the front door to make your in and out escape even harder.
Yes.
Because that's the way you want things to go. You want to make your robbery as difficult as possible. So that way it feels like almost like a movie. You know?
To where you feel like you're robbing them,
Yeah.
but not taking the $4,000 cash or anything from the actual people.
Yeah.
Being like, wow, that adrenaline rush was really good. So I'm just going to not run out the front door. I'm just going to run out the back door without taking anything. He or she just got like super rushed.
What's literally what is the fun in robbing something if you take the money and you don't have an exit plan? There's no fun in that.
I guess it wouldn't be called a robbery, technically. It would just be murder.
I don't know. Maybe, this is a little bit of a targeted plan. What do you think?
Well, given that she was shot at least like 5 times, I don't know of a robbery where the person just shoots and then shoots again.
Yeah.
The only person that got shot 5 times, by the way, not to mention execution style, which typically means in the back of the head. On her knees, most likely in the back of the head. So that's very sus.
Well,
For a robber who's not going to take any money or anything off of them either.
Yeah.
The doors locked, no money taken, shot 5 times, execution style. Everyone else is dead in there too.
Well, what makes me truly believe that this was not a targeted event is that she was shot 5 times and she was going to testify against Bill Clinton. So those all lead up to a normal robbery at Starbucks.
Yes.
Yes.
Icing on the cake, nothing was taken.
And didn't in an article from the Washington Post, didn't it also say, let me actually read a quote from it. It says, "To have a triple homicide anywhere in the District of Columbia is an unusual event," said Evans, who represents the Georgetown area on the council. "To have a triple homicide in Georgetown is extraordinary. Georgetown has never been a place where a crime has been a problem."
Well, let me ask you this now. They said that, but this was the 90s.
Yeah.
That drugs were rampant everywhere. Murders, killing, robberies were everywhere across the country.
Well, I think
if you were to go back and look at all the Dare commercials and all the presidential ads and everything, things were just absolutely terrible. I don't know how either of us survived growing up in the 90s, honestly.
Well, I think I have to make sure you understand this, is that they've never seen a triple homicide. That's because most of the time people just give themselves self-inflicted wounds there. There's not homicides.
No, they typically die of ulcers.
Yes. Yes.
And then they self-inflict those guns
yes.
because they're like, I can't stand this ulcer anymore.
Typically in Washington, there's just a lot of those, what would you call, to abbreviate it, SSs?
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah.
SCs?
SCs? I don't
Yeah.
know. What would you
Whatever
say about that?
is.
Anyway, self-inflicted wounds. Okay?
Yeah.
So the next person we want to talk about is Johnny, an old poor mechanic in the Washington area.
Who did nothing wrong.
Literally nothing.
November 1997. A transmission shop owner opened the trunk of a tornado-ravaged car and found a trunkload of documents. Among them, a 1982 cashier's check for $27,000 payable to Bill Clinton. The source of the funds for the check was the McDougal Savings and Loan. The shop owner, Johnny Lawhon, was reluctant to talk about his discovery. He said, quote, "Clinton is the most powerful man in the world," unquote. Lawhon later died in an automobile accident. James McDougal had stated, quote, "Immediately concurrent with the check being found, I started getting a lot of heat. I am a prisoner of the executive branch," unquote. He was serving a 3-year sentence in the Federal Medical Center in Fort Worth, Texas, and was cooperating with the independent counsel into the investigation of the president. He was scheduled to testify before the grand jury. Against doctor's orders, McDougal was given an injection of Lasix, a diuretic. He was then put in solitary confinement, where he died of cardiac arrest.
Mr. Johnny.
Yes.
But McDougal, what do you think? What do you think? What
Well,
do you think about that?
the poor guy didn't do anything. He found a trunk load, which, by the way, how much is a trunk load of documents? Is it fill in the trunk? Is it a nice little layer? What's a trunk load?
Well, and I like the report said a trunk load, but the main, let's make sure everyone is aware of this particular thing, is the cashier's check.
Yes.
Right? So what other documents that they found that they're not reporting about? Yeah. And that has to do with Whitewater.
Yeah.
That was in
their whole
Arkansas.
scheme.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
That included Mr. McDougal.
Which was why he was in
Prison. Basically a hospital prison.
In the first place.
So Lasix, if y'all don't know, is a diuretic that the video obviously showed, but it's something that kind of makes the fluid in your body kind of so you end up taking a piss a lot. You urinate quite a bit from it. And so obviously that's something that if you don't need it, it can cause quite a bit of health concerns for you.
It seems like it. Yes.
Like a heart attack. So that's a definitely, but it's kind of strange because I think about that and it kind of happens quite often where nurses and other people give the wrong medication to people. But
yeah, but how does it typically lead to a heart attack or death?
It's happened before, but I would say
In a prison?
most doctors would know the contraindications for different medications in people's heart.
Well, that's the thing that I said too, against doctor's orders. So
Yeah.
they knew what they were giving him. There was no like, oh, I don't know what this is that I'm putting into your system.
No, that's wrong.
Oh.
Okay,
Okay, explain.
that is
Elaborate.
all. No, that's all I
That's
have
it.
to say.
Okay.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Well, I dug into to get into the Whitewater thing real quick too, a
Mhm.
little more. Let me look at my notes. The check was to clear Bill Clinton his debts. Like it was $27,000
Mm-hmm.
from their Whitewater escapades. So this was debt that Bill Clinton had from that whole Whitewater thing.
Yeah.
So what they did was they illegally make this cashier's check out to him. Bill Clinton didn't even sign off on it. It didn't have his what is it called? His endorsement on there either. So
Yeah.
this check was just made to Bill Clinton to just clear the debt out of it.
So this is actually from the article from the AP back in 1999. So it says Kenneth Starr's investigation alleged for the first time Thursday that the fraudulent loan to Susan McDougal in the 1980s was used to retire a $27,000 debt in President Clinton's name that was taken out from their Whitewater land venture.
Mm.
So these individuals, so this poor mechanic found all of this information on the Whitewater.
Yeah.
And
In just a random
Toyota
car that he was fixing.
Yeah.
That's what I said in the last episode. Was like whoever's handling these things, like high profile things, are doing a terrible job. They left all those documents in a car that got taken to get fixed. And his little quote was, Clinton's the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah.
Like I don't want anything to do with that. And then what's his name? McDougal?
McDougal.
He died of a heart attack in his cell in prison, awaiting trial because he was going to cooperate against the Clintons. Does that sound like anybody? Does that ring a bell?
That
Anybody more recent?
it kind of almost sounds like an Epstein news that we've heard before.
Someone who has had a bunch of dirt on the Clintons and
Somebody that
decided it's not worth it. I'm going to now self-inflict this neck wound.
maybe someone who learned how to smuggle, went to someone who knew how to smuggle things from other countries into islands and different locations. I don't know. Is that, a little weird, a few connections, maybe. Whatever. I mean, it could be just coincidence.
It's just, I think it's just a huge coincidence right now.
Of course.
I'm very level-headed here, so
Of course. I mean, there's only like 100 or plus deaths related to this
no big
whole
deal.
Clinton situation that
One of those 100s is now Ron Brown, and Ron Brown was actually one of the higher ups, just like Vince Foster.
Mm-hmm.
He had some connections and whatnot, but
He was definitely into the political realm in the Commerce Department of the U.S. government.
let's take a look.
Let the video explain to you.
Ron Brown was the target of a major probe headed by independent counsel Daniel Pearson. There were allegations that Brown had received a bribe from a Vietnamese businessman. He was also being investigated for numerous scandals by the FBI, the FDIC, a Congressional Oversight Committee, the Energy Department, the Senate Judiciary Committee, and even his own Commerce Department Inspector General. Brown's business partner, Nolanda Hill, would later testify in March 1998 that White House officials wanted him to cover up a scheme involving the sale of U.S. trade mission slots to executives in exchange for contributions for the upcoming Clinton-Gore presidential campaign and the Democratic Party. She said, Ron expressed to me his displeasure that the purpose of the commerce trade missions had been and were being perverted at the direction of the White House. On April 3, 1996, an Air Force Boeing 737 carrying Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 34 others on a trade mission to the Balkans crashed into a hillside near Croatia's Dubrovnik Airport. Air Force procedure called for a two-step investigation. However, for the first time in memory, the Air Force canceled the first step, which called for a safety investigation of a crash on friendly soil. An autopsy on Brown's body would typically have been part of this investigation. They instead went directly to the second and final step, consisting mostly of legal proceedings that would mirror the sentiments of the Pentagon and White House officials, who implied the crash was nothing more than an accident. The Croatian wire service reported that the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder had been recovered. Later, the Pentagon disputed this, saying that no voice recorder was on board. But Hillary Clinton flew on the very same aircraft 2 weeks prior, making it unlikely that a voice recorder would not have been on board. The Air Force concluded that Brown's plane was 10 degrees or almost 2 miles off course. Maintenance Chief Niko Jersic was in charge of the ground beacons and was scheduled to be grilled by the U.S. Air Force Accident Investigation Team. However, he was found shot to death 3 days following the crash. His death was ruled a suicide. Over 3 hours after the crash, the first search party arrived on the scene and miraculously found a survivor. Air Force Tech Sergeant Shelley Kelly was found alive and would have helped officials with their investigation into the crash. But she died of a broken neck on the way to a nearby hospital. Lieutenant Steve Cogswell, a forensic pathologist who investigated the crash, contends there is evidence that Ron Brown might have been murdered. He said, quote, "Essentially, Brown had a 45/100 inch inwardly beveling circular hole in the top of his head, which is essentially the description of a .45 caliber gunshot wound. This man needs an autopsy. This whole thing stinks," unquote. Several personnel were present while Colonel Gormley was conducting his external examination. The photographer present was Chief Petty Officer Kathleen Janoski, a 22-year veteran.
I opened up my big mouth in the morgue and said, "Wow, look at the hole in Ron Brown's head. It looks like a bullet hole." I said that, and my life has never been the same since.
All of the X-ray films of Brown's head have disappeared. There were allegedly many photos taken of Brown that were stored in a safe, but these photos, along with the negatives, have also disappeared. All that remains of the head X-rays are photographic slide images taken by Janowski. Dr. Cyril Wecht has nearly 40 years of experience, has conducted some 13,000 autopsies, and is considered one of the nation's most prominent forensic pathologists. He is also prominent in Democratic Party politics. He says there was more than enough evidence to suggest a possible homicide in the death of Ron Brown, and an autopsy should have been conducted on his body. As he stated, quote, "It's not even arguable in the field of medical legal investigations whether an autopsy should have been conducted on Ron Brown," unquote. And Lieutenant Colonel Cogswell stated, quote, "You can't ignore who this person is. To stack up the coincidences, one of 35 people has got a hole in their head. The hole is dead center in the top of their head, and it just happens to be the most important person on the plane from a political point of view. That's a whole lot of reason to investigate it," unquote.
So there is a lot to go over in this particular video. I mean,
so, well,
this is almost like a reaction video for you guys, because this is just ridiculous. The absurdity of our government and the investigations that they do for these particular high-profile individuals.
They make it so obvious. It's like, well, who's gonna ask? Like, don't ask questions.
Yeah.
But the guy was being investigated for taking bribes from a Vietnamese businessman. Like,
yes.
I guess this was their way to be like, okay, well, let's take the heat off of us and throw something at him.
Yeah.
But he was getting investigated by the FBI, the FDIC, the Congressional Oversight Committee, the Energy Department, the Senate Judiciary Committee, and his own Inspector General.
So, and one of the other reasons, so their main thing that he was being investigated was for the bribe thing, right? Oh,
yes.
He died in a car crash because of the bribe. But there
was plane crash.
A plane crash.
Yes.
Sorry. But there was also the fact that Nalanda Hill was saying that the whole thing is just it's a terrible thing that happened.
It's perverted.
Yes,
it's been perverted.
It's been perverted. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why, if it was a bribe thing just between him and the Vietnamese thing was perverted? Well, the perversion comes because when he was working in the Clinton administration,
Mm-hmm.
Clinton and Gore during their campaign were actually trying to sell trade commission slots for campaign funds.
Uh-huh.
And so that was the other investigations that were going on, but the news was only just showing kind of the bribery that was happening with Mr.
What he was doing.
Yes.
Like the bad stuff that he was doing. Not everything that was going on behind the curtains that they were puppeteering around.
Yes. So I get like the military themselves are kind of just like, you know, we want to put on our skating shoes and our skating boots and just kind of skate through the military life a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, but these individuals in a high profile case decide they're just going to skip the whole investigation and go straight to writing the report.
Yeah. So it was a two-step.
Yes.
And they skipped the first step, which is the most important. Doing like a safety and thoroughly looking through the the black box and everything.
Exactly. So there's a safety investigation that they just completely negated.
Yeah.
How did a plane just crash in Croatia?
And the thing is, it's on friendly soil. Like
Yes.
there was no red tape or anything. It was friendly soil. They could have just did the investigation, especially with 37 other people on board on a federal airplane.
Hey, this guy's being investigated. We don't need no stinking autopsies,
Like,
guys. We
knew-
don't need
we
to
knew what
do
was
it.
going on.
There's no need for an investigation. The plane just went down. And you know what? Croatia,
It's okay.
You law officials over there, there was no voice box or anything in there. What are you
No.
talking about?
We don't care what you're saying. We don't care
Yeah.
that your team was there within 2 hours.
You were wrong. You were imagining that. Isn't that what the news typically does to us? Like what you saw and what you heard was wrong.
No, it was this. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
Which is typically like the first thing that comes out. Typically is like the truth.
Yeah.
Is
Hey,
what comes out.
when a plane crashes, what's the first thing that people look for? The black supposed box that's
No,
out
they
there,
look
right?
for survivors.
Oh, okay, that's true. They probably do look for
Technically.
survivors.
Technically,
But
and they
then
did find one.
And then they went to.
They did find
They
one.
They go looking for the black box, but yes, they did find survivors, right?
yeah, they found
Per the video.
Shelly Kelly, and she was alive, and she was gonna help. Obviously, like once she recovered everything, help with the investigation, know exactly what was going on, since she was in the plane. But unfortunately, she died
Yeah.
from a broken neck.
Yeah.
On her way to the hospital.
Yeah.
I don't know
What?
how she survived so long.
So after they found her, I mean, she survived a plane crash with a broken neck, but somehow on the way, she dies. Right.
Yeah.
And then
Because you get a survivor from a plane crash, and you kind of just set them up and like, here we go, get in this jittery Jeep that we're driving.
And I can envision this right here, that the Croatian police, after they find the survivor, they go, oh, here's the box, the voice box here. And the U.S. officials are like, oh, yes, thank you. We'll take good care of this.
We'll make sure this gets to the right hands and released.
Don't worry about this, guys. We'll definitely make sure this gets put away in a very safe place for you guys.
Yeah, no big deal. No big deal. Not to mention, that same plane, just 2 weeks earlier, the president's wife was on it.
Hillary Clinton was
Hillary
on that
Clinton.
exact same plane
Just
2 weeks earlier.
2 weeks prior, yes. And you're gonna tell me that there was nothing on there.
I think
That data was just so important.
Well, I think
they took it off.
I think after Hillary got off the plane, she's like, "Whoa, we said too much. We need to take this voice box out of
And
here."
they never
guys."
replaced
And they
it.
never replaced
They
it.
just left it out there like, shit. Well, Mr. Brown's going to be going on there next, so I don't think we really need to replace those things anyways.
Exactly. Why would you replace it? You know, what are you gonna do? And it's interesting because we're talking about the black box and the voice recorder, and there's a guy. Oh, his name was, what was the name in the video? Nico
Jersic, I think.
maintenance chief, in charge of ground beacons. So this guy was definitely the person who's like, okay, we need that voice box so we can do it. We need to investigate this properly, right? He investigate by the U.S. Air Force.
Yes.
Okay, so kind of what the little notes say. And then what happens to him? 3 days later, he gets shot in the back of the head But you know what happens when people shoot themselves in the back of the head, right?
Let me guess, they were self-inflicted.
They're self-inflicted.
Gotcha. So
It
SS.
only makes sense
It was another SS.
that when you do an investigation, those people are so saddened by the situation, they do self-inflicting wounds to themselves.
He was just
And
so
not a- and not a-
upset. They was like, I can't believe I caused this.
And they want to do it in the weirdest.
can't do it.
Yeah, and they want to do it in the weirdest manner too. They don't want to do it just like in a normal way. They want to go, hey, you know what? I'm gonna reach behind my head
Yes.
because it's
the easiest way.
exactly.
It's the most convenient way.
It's kind of
to
like
do
it's kind of like the person who robbed that Starbucks.
Uh-huh.
We want to make things difficult. It's just it makes sense that way.
Well, what they want to do is they want to put that kind of sense of mystery, like, why would he do it? Like,
Yeah.
did he do it this way? It's like, no, I just want like some
I think he thought, you know what?
remembrance
This will be good episode of Unsolved Mysteries
or far out dudes.
or Far Out Dudes. Hey, look at that.
30 years from now.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me is when they had his body in autopsy too, the what was her name? Let me see. Oh, Kathleen Jawanski.
Yes.
A little comment of
Janowski.
Janowski, yeah. Wow, look at the hole in Brown's head. It looks like a bullet hole.
Yeah.
And then her life turns upside down
Yeah.
next. Like, just a comment of it in there, you know?
Yeah, so you know what that kind of makes me think? It almost feels like a movie adaptation of one of Tom Clancy's spy books.
Uh-huh.
You know, like
Yeah.
the guy probably gets on the plane, does his deeds to Mr. Ron Brown,
Uh-huh.
probably like breaks other people's necks, like the poor woman whose neck was broken. He probably broke it before like he jumped out the plane and like parachuted out of the wind, like out of the plane.
Well, she was alive.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He probably broke it, thought she was dead.
Uh-huh.
She
How? Do it again? Oh,
And not only did she
Sorry,
not
break people's
die, but
necks.
she like survived the plane crash that happened too.
yeah. They're like,
And they're like,
what the freaking
snap.
odds she survives? Make sure she passes away from her wounds on the way to the hospital.
so
please.
this guy's like,
Don't stabilize her.
This guy's like packing up his parachute, and he's getting a call from like the Clintons going, "Hey,
Is it done yet?
there's still someone there." And he's like,
Alive.
"Oh shoot!" Like running through the field to get to the ambulance.
And, I don't know what to tell you. She passed away
Yeah.
from her neck wound that she survived during a plane crash.
Wow, look at that hole. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And
Wow, look at the hole in Brown's head. It looks like a bullet hole.
so,
And that was it.
so
That's all
Lieutenant
need to be said.
Mr. Cogswell,
Mm-hmm.
Mr.
Cogswell.
Cogswell.
Mm-hmm.
I like his whole thing is like, this man needs an autopsy.
Uh-huh.
The whole thing stinks of a cover up.
Yeah.
And the rest of the government goes,
Nah.
nah, plane crash.
Pretty short and simple, you know?
Hey.
a 45-inch. How did it put? Anyways,
I'm pretty sure they did
which
that.
was like a 45 caliber gun.
They obviously did an autopsy. All of the X-rays, images, everything is missing except like the particular photographs of like just the body.
That was put in a safe, by the way.
Yes.
To be secure. And then, it just disappeared.
Bye.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Definitely just a plane crash.
It's just weird coincidences.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Just coincidences.
that all revolve around the Clintons.
I'm telling you, this does not surprise me at all. These are normal things that happen. I mean, a robbery without taking money.
Obvious.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if it's classified as a robbery still, but yeah.
Well, you never. Well, it's probably it was.
They took their lives.
Yes.
It was a robbery of life.
Yes. Robbery of life.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Mr. Johnny,
Uh-huh.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Poor
Who
guy.
didn't do anything wrong.
He just
found the documents.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's a coincidence that he just passed away, you know.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. McDougal. I mean,
Who got?
malpractice.
I can't
happens,
say.
malpractice happens all the time, guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I mean,
he got Jeffrey Epstein, but I guess we should say Jeffrey Epstein got McDougaled.
Ooh, I like that saying.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein got McDougaled.
Wow. You heard it here first from these lips.
From Far Out Dudes from Joseph. That is our new. He He is bringing up new trends every day.
I'm gonna make shirts that say Epstein got McDougaled.
If you like that shirt idea, let us know in the comments, guys. Let us know in the comments. So we want to thank all of you guys for listening. We want to ask you guys that you like, subscribe, hit the bell. I'm hoping that when I do this, that there's something right there that pops up.
Well, I'll try to put that. I'll put a little bell in.
Yeah,
I'll put a bell in
right here.
In post.
Yeah.
So like you said, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. If you want to hear our sultry voices, just the voices, we're on everything, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify. So just go listen there and start giving us some money.
We want to thank everyone who's listened, who's subscribed, who's viewed, and who's commented down below, because that helps with the algorithm and it helps our show go up a little bit further so other people can find out all that has been going on in the past of the Clintons.
And don't forget also, PSS, if you have a subject or story you want us to talk about, leave it in the comment or send us an email, faroutdudespodcast@gmail.com. This is the end.